Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Therese Lane, and I'm in marketing here. I think I know most of you. But I really we all want to thank you for coming out today to learn more about how our residents are benefiting from living so close to UNH. So first, I just want to say it's so nice to have you in person. I think as you can all feel that having the in-person events are so nice. We do a lot of Zoom all the time, once a month or 2 or 3 times a month sometimes, but there's nothing like having you all in person. So thank you for coming out. Um, Today, you're going to hear directly from 5 of our residents who want to share their experiences with, the benefits that they are receiving from living so close to UNH, being involved with the university. And so we're going to hear directly from, I'm starting here on my left is Carly Helen. Next is Jim Helen. Cal Reynolds, Hart Silverwood, and Ellie Lonsky. And Ellie joins us from just having flown back at 7 o'clock last night from Copenhagen. We're glad your flight was not delayed.
Thank you very much. Is this working? Everything's good? Yes, it was a Rhodes Scholar trip. Have any of you been on Rhodes Scholar trips? It was great. It was Stockholm to Copenhagen, then Copenhagen to Logan, Logan the bus to Portsmouth, Portsmouth the car here. And then I was supposed to be at a town council meeting because I was elected this spring, but I opted for a shower and wine over town council. But don't tell them, it's not very professional. So, but anyway, welcome to all of you. And do any of you live in Durham? You do, yes. Well, I hope you voted for me. No. Uh, the reason when I was looking 4 years ago, 5 years ago, at the possibility of moving to a retirement community, and I visited several, and I was on the waiting list at Exeter because this place didn't exist. But I've been in school since I was 5 years old. When I was living up on Newfound Lake before moving here, I audited courses at Plymouth State University. And so when I heard that they were building a new facility in Durham, the reason I'm here is UNH. And it's paid off, it's wonderful. I've audited 3 courses in political science. I was talking to one of you before the beginning, and he was saying, and I fully agree, how stimulating it is to be with young people. First of all, you throw away any misconception you have about this generation or that generation. They're all just delightful and wonderful. It was a revelation to me that in this course on contemporary European politics this last semester, that when the Russians invaded Ukraine, none of the students were alive when 9/11 happened. And it was just, and there was like, they're 18 to 21 years old. So, and now the town council I'm the town council rep to the Agriculture Commission. So at age 83, I've changed my major. I'm no longer poli-sci. I'm now taking sustainability and all that. So I want to keep it short because I want to make sure that, you have a chance to ask me either now or privately maybe how one goes about auditing courses. The primary thing, of course, is you need the permission of the instructor. And I have found it, and I walk, you can walk to UNH, and of course, you can always take the Wildcat Transit buses. But I have a better way. What I do is I was doing my banking at People's United Bank, and I worked out a deal with the bank manager that she would let me park for free in the bank parking lot. So one of my claims to fame is I've lived here almost 3 years and I've never paid to park. So anyway, welcome to all of you. And I think unless you have an immediate question, I'll pass the mic along, and just so happy to see you.
Well, good morning to you all. My name is Hart Silverwood, and my story of life in a college town is quite different from the other participants here. And probably most I moved to Durham in the early 70s. It was not connected whatsoever to the university. It was, sorry for that interruption. I'm not a ventriloquist. I say, so I moved here, I say, in the early 70s with my young family. I worked in industry, and it was close by, but it was totally unconnected with the university. But I chose Durham to live because I thought it would be a great place to raise a family, and I had 4 children. So we moved here, and uh, since that time, I have learned to enjoy all that a college town has to offer, both in terms of opportunities for my young children to go to the school system in Oyster River, uh, to the opportunities that we have as residents to meet other residents in the area who are typically connected with the university. And it's also given me a chance to enjoy all the offerings of UNH that I probably wouldn't have taken advantage of if I lived even in Dover. So it's quite an interesting experience to live here, but not be part of the university family. Um, One of the obvious advantages is you meet a lot of the neighbors who are connected with the university. So you develop long-term friendships with university people, and you learn a lot more about what the university has to offer. They say I thought it was a great place to raise a family. It was. My children went to the school system and the high school, graduated from there. None of them, except one, I should eventually went to UNH as a student, but they all decided to go elsewhere. Um, I developed a lot of good friends. As a friend, was the at that time the dean of the engineering school. The other thing that I have learned is that I can go to any event I want, and always seems like you're part of it. Quite interested in UNH sports, but hockey teams managed to have season tickets for decades, and also had the opportunity to take advantage of other offerings, lectures, or if it's been performances on campus. Another thing that's unique to UNH is that because of the student population, pertinent to mention it today being primary day, political candidates always come to Durham and always will talk to students and any residents and faculty that wish to attend. So you get a great opportunity to get exposed to the local and national political scene just as a resident. I've often heard that Durham is a so-called town and gown town, which means that the association with the university is a two-way street, and it really is unique opportunities. You hear the term town and gown, it's something that means a lot to the local. Also, the my students, since my children went to the Oyster River system, they also participated in the Oyster River Youth Association, which uses many of the UNH facilities. I recall many decades ago, I was up early on a Saturday morning to take my son to hockey practice, and I was also a coach one of the teams. You develop those kinds of associations in a college town that you wouldn't realize if you weren't from. Finally, and this is just something which has a personal interest to me, the McGregor Ambulance Corps, which serves the 3 towns here. based in Durham, and many of the EMTs who respond are UNH students. So that's another interesting aspect. Certainly living here in a retirement community, you become familiar with the McGregor ambulance services. So it's been a great place to grow up, a great place to live and know, and yet not be a university person.
Good morning. As Therese mentioned before, I'm Cal Reynolds. I'm the one foreigner in the midst. I'm the only one who here, I think, who had no connection with New Hampshire, and certainly not with the university before arriving here. What brought me here as a foreigner from New York was, in fact, that I have a son who lives in Dover. Certainly was a big attraction for coming here. I don't know if it was Sherry Young who was with us today, who gave the word to Ellie Lunsky, who you already heard. But the first day I was here, Ellie contacted me and asked if I would like to go on a hike. The word had got out that I do like to hike, and I do. And the first place that she took me, of course, was to walk up the university, which was great. Shortly thereafter, the Helens, whom you'll hear from in just a couple of minutes, took us on a tour of the university, and so we learned a lot about it in that way. But on this walk with Ellie on the first day, she found out that I and another resident had gone to competing universities. We'd also too been air intelligence officers in the Navy. We had also lived and worked in Europe, and so we got inveigled into giving a talk on the joys of living and working in a foreign country. But what that led to was still another discussion. Wouldn't it be a good idea if we had a world affairs here so that people could discuss world affairs? I said, fine, I'll work on it. But unfortunately, by trying to reach out, not having any connection with the university at that point, I ended up giving the first two talks myself, largely because I guess I had lived and worked in Europe. I also had a few offices there, and I also taught a couple graduate courses at NYU on the subject. But in any event, Ellie again bailed me out and introduced me to a professor at UNH, who was Chris Reardon, who is an expert and teaches on China and on Taiwan. It was a fascinating time. And Ellie has continued to bail me out. Not having any direct connections with the university myself, it's rather a challenge to find speakers. But most important, so far as I'm concerned, because we do have these World Affair meetings every month, and the connection with UNH because of that has been very interesting. One of the things which I found fascinating of considering taking courses at UNH was the fact that there would be a certain amount of reciprocity. They'd be happy to come here to talk, provided I would be happy to talk to their classes, which is a fair deal. And it ties back again to what Hart said before of the reciprocity issue. UNH. UNH has become very dear to my heart, and thoroughly appreciate the relationship which we've had, and I'm pretty sure that quite a few of you, and I spoke to a couple of you this morning, have much greater connections than I have. But please keep up the good work and keep making it possible for UNH to have such a close relationship.
Thank you, Cal. Good morning, and thank you for coming to this event. I am a person from New Hampshire. I went to UNH, and we graduated 1957 from UNH. We were classmates. We met at UNH, and got married a year later after we dated our senior year. So we worked our way to Chicago and stayed there for 32 years. But moving back here to New Hampshire, we wanted to be near a college town. Every year you get older and you think about, well, what are we going to do in our retirement and beyond just working and volunteering? So we really spent quite a bit of time looking at RiverWoods Exeter and what is now RiverWoods Manchester. And we finally bit the bullet and we decided, well, we've got to do something. And we learned about all the advantages of a CCRC. And we finally actually put money down in Manchester, in RiverWoods Manchester, what is now RiverWoods Manchester. About a few months later, we were asked to be on a focus group for building a RiverWoods in Durham. Wow, that changed everything. We didn't have to change a medical team or friends, relationship to UNH, because we loved the fact that we could, because we moved here just a mile up the street. We lived here for, at that point, like 18 years in Durham and really got connected with UNH. So happy to be right here in RiverWoods Durham. How many people have lived in a college town? Okay, a few of you, good. Hart mentioned town and gown. What I have observed the last now 20 years is the cooperation between the town of Durham. I think you should know absolutely a lot about UNH, but you also need some reassurance that you're moving to a town that is like some town and gown communities that I've heard of are in constant conflict with one another for a lot of issues. But what I've observed in Durham is a great cooperation between the administration of the town of Durham and the administration of UNH. What do I mean by that? Well, for instance, the water system is shared by the two entities. The police department is not shared, but they have separate police departments, but they really work closely together for all kinds of occasions. The fire department serves both the campus and Durham. So there's a lot going on between negotiations, because there are contracts involved and negotiations, but between the president of the university and the town manager and administration, I think it's been an amazingly smooth ride. A little bit about UNH. Some of you probably know very little about UNH. It was founded in 1866 as a sea, space, and land grant college. It has latest numbers over 11,500 undergraduates and almost 2,600 graduate students. They now come from some 39 states and 33 countries. There are 11 colleges offering 2,000 courses and over 200 degree programs. The amount of possibilities are endless here. UNH is noted for its research. That's research in agriculture, it's research in dairy, it's research in getting grants from federal government. They recently got a grant for $260 million from NASA. And they are going to be the lead investigator, and they're going to build one large satellite surrounded by 8 small ones They're working with a space center out in California. And that is an amazing amount of money for little old Durham, New Hampshire. But for years, the president of UNH was here for a talk, and he said that 20% of the satellites going around have UNH software. They have a lot of research in education, research in child development, on and on. Um, they they have 50 research centers and institutions, 50 of them. A college town offers you many opportunities to connect with students and professors. You can go to open lectures. Some professors will sort of advertise that there's an open lecture, you're welcome. And we've gone to open lectures, and surprisingly, we're the only white-haired people in the audience. But the opportunities are there. You can go to, sometimes it is really advertised in the theater up in the Memorial Union building, which is sort of the center, the hub of the university. You know, Professor so-and-so from the University of wherever, Virginia, is going to give a talk on whatever topic, and it's open and free to the public, and those are available. So you have all those opportunities. The largest undergraduate program in the undergraduate research program in the country, I'm not sure whether it still is, but very recently, I think it still is the largest in the country. And the students do research, undergraduate. Some go international for it, and there is support for that. And they come back and they present their findings, and that's open to the public. And you can connect with students there. They love to talk to you about their poster board, and a lot of that is way over my head. I mean, they're researching whatever they're researching, but it's fascinating. And that is a hell for a week or more, where you can go and talk to these students and connect with them. Excuse me. There's a dairy farm research here, and you can, they have organic things. But one thing that we love to go to is going to the dairy farm, and where a cow is assigned to a student, or a student is assigned to a cow, however you want to word it. And they are so happy to come and introduce, I want to introduce you to Bessie or whatever. And they're responsible for the health and welfare of that cow for the whole year, everything, totally. And they are just delighted. And many times you can go to the research farm where they're developing new melons or new strawberries for seed companies, and get a lot of money that way. And you can walk to the research farm, or you drive there, and you can talk to professors out in the field, and they love that. And the students love to explain all that. There's the Greek connection, sororities, fraternities. If any of you were in a fraternity or sorority, you can connect with one that may be on campus here, and you can mentor, you can get connected with them, have lunch or breakfast with them downtown, and get an update on what's going on, and support them in any way. You get to know them. They are wonderful. As Ellie said, the students to me are full of energy. They love to tell their stories, and to somebody who will listen. And it's amazing the connection that you can make. The students come here from foreign countries as athletes, and I'm connected quite a bit with the athletic department. And when I see that, I can try to connect the students with somebody, a resident here, who I know speaks that language, or maybe some were even born in that country. And it's very comforting for those students to realize that, if I need help, if I need some counseling, if I'm in trouble, there's somebody here, and they can, meet and have lunch together. So the Active Retirement Association is an association that started at UNH. It now has a dotted line, so to speak, to UNH. It is totally run by volunteers now. It is about 40 years old, has about 400 members, and they have speakers from UNH, professors, retired professors, subject matter experts. In the morning and the afternoon, no night courses. They have cultural tours and many, many other things. That's an opportunity to listen and get connected with professors. So, new residents, Polly and I have given, I think, over 20 bus tours of the town of Durham and UNH, telling them where the key things are in the town of Durham. And at UNH, we go all over. We don't get off the bus, but go to trailheads. Yeah, you can walk and take hikes on this trail, but dogs are not allowed or whatever. So there's a lot of information that way. And so with all that information throwing at you today, how do you assemble all that and get to know it? Well, two main ways would be one. RiverWoods Durham has a software where on your laptop or computer you can access everything that's going on in this building and all the programs, and it's called Vibrant. Also on there, connections to the website for the athletic department, all the news, sports, scores, everything. Also, the website for the cultural events, the music, the dance, the theater, the concerts, the recitals, the symphonies, so on campus. So you can get to know it that way. So I think that well, I will say also there's a dedicated UNH bulletin board in the mailroom that posts a lot of things too. I'll pass it over to my wife.
Great. Thank you for coming. Really pleased to have a chance to talk to you. I think the biggest surprise we had of coming back here to Durham and being intentional about what we chose to do, because we had overcommitted ourselves in every place we lived before that. The biggest surprise was how delighted the students were to have an older person talk to them, listen to them, invite them, inviting us to attend different things. It was almost like they missed their grandparents, almost like they missed the small community perhaps they lived in before. So that was the biggest surprise. As Jim said, we looked at a number of CCRCs and then we're so thrilled that we one in our backyard. But it's a busy life here at RiverWoods Durham, but you need to have a life as long as you're able outside of RiverWoods Durham to make friends, to have events to go to have a change of pace, and then find the balance between life out there and life here. And that's what, as long as you're able to go and you're living in a college town, you have that opportunity. So there are really three basic parts to what we're talking about today. Certainly is what the college offers us. And you've heard a lot about that. One area you haven't heard about is the UNH Extension Service, which offers everything from tagging monarch butterflies to becoming a marine docent and going into schools and doing programs, painting classes on Appledore Island, many different things that you can do. But I'd like to turn the tables and talk about what we can do for the students and for the college. We can be a subject matter specialist and be invited like Cal and Allie to speak in classes. And I've had that opportunity to return to the occupational therapy department and speak, and also women's studies, and talk about being old. And of course, you tell them your age and they think you're absolutely ancient. And then you talk about your philosophy of trying to be as outrageous as you can be as you age. And they seem to really enjoy that. Just attending their events, just saying to them, hi, I'm Carly, and tell me about yourself. What year are you? And then what are you majoring in? And that just seems to open the door, and they really enjoy that. We were having dinner one night with a young freshman who was a major in clarinet performance. And she actually had a concert that night of the symphonic band. And she said, will you come? She said, I'm the third clarinet from the left. And certainly we absolutely did go. Another opportunity I had, I became very active in campus ministry, United Campus Ministry to UNH. And this is an ecumenical group, and we have a house, and when you pass it, you will please admire the blue shutters that Jim painted. But we housed a lot of international students. And through that, we had a chance to mentor students. There was a PhD, a woman from India who was here to get her PhD in engineering, and she was just having trouble fitting in. So during the time that she was here, we often would bring her home or take her places or go out and share a meal and be with her. And the same thing happened with the occupational therapy student that for 5 years, she was a athlete, OT. She played volleyball. We went to a lot of volleyball games, I'll tell you. Another thing we had the opportunity is that you can come up with your own ideas. We thought it would be really fun to teach students how to knit. So we met at campus ministry knitting Afghans for Afghans. And so we taught these students how to knit. They're supposed to be, I think, like a 7 by 10 inch square. I'll tell you, no one ever knit that dimensions. In fact, they were like trapezoids, and just trying to fit them together to make an Afghan was really fun. You can also take your interests. Jim and I, when we moved here, we had been to Katrina with the Red Cross, and so we became active with the Red Cross group on campus and able to share our experiences with them. There's been no mention of all the different theater opportunities that there are here. Anna Green Gables is coming up early October at homecoming weekend. And what's really fun for us is that UNH was, because I don't know if it's absolutely current information, was the only college offering aerial dance. And so in the spring, we get to go to the dance group and see the students using ribbons and trapeze. So that was the second part. What can we do for the students? But that also includes supporting students that come here to RiverWoods Durham. Right now, there's 2 very active groups that come here. One is occupational therapy students that come every week. They spend the first hour helping you with your Kindle or your phone or your computer, any sort of IT help that you need. They are whizzes. And then the second hour, they help, they do programs on brain health, and they explain the research that they've done in preparation for what they do. They also have a robot named Maxine, and I haven't seen Maxine lately. Maybe she's hiding from us because of COVID. But the students teach RiverWoods Durham residents how to maneuver Maxine around to different apartments to do telehealth. And that's all part of their coursework. We also have students here from social work, and they run a number of different groups, a Parkinson's group, a mild cognitive impairment group, different kinds of support group, and also groups they participate in a group on end-of-life issues. Very often as a topic specialist, we recently talked about green burials, your legacy, how you can pass that on, or they did a workshop on writing your own obituary. So this opportunity to give back, to go to things. I know one weekend we had met a number of students through campus ministry where they have drum circles and dinners and you name it going on there. And we went to the Laramie Project and watched a very heartfelt play, and we knew some of the people in it. And then the very next night, we went to the Vagina Monologues, and the contrast between the two of them was just pretty amazing. I know at the Vagina Monologues, during the intermission, we stood up, and the students behind us, we were the only gray-haired people there, tapped us on the shoulder and said, "You're not going home, are you?" And we said, "No, we're just stretching." They were anthropology majors. I think they were just terribly interested in our responses. So the third part, of course, is what does living in a college town offer? Just everything. This opportunity to build connections and relations. You know, it's lots of fun. You kind of learn when not to go to campus, like Cinco de Mayo, or when the freshmen arrive, all 3,000 of them within a 4-hour window. We used to be part of the greeters for them. And certainly students have coffee in one hand and their phone in the other, and they don't always walk out on those crosswalks, but we found that 92% of the time they wave and thank you when you stop the car from running over them. You can also get full of angst driving with Jim very often. He'll kind of mutter to himself and say, "Oh, it's cold out, put a jacket on," or cover up your midriff, or flip-flops in February, what are you thinking about? But you learn a lot from the students. You learn that if you feed them, that they'll come. That Jim had a chance to drive. Hart mentioned the political scene here, which is really fun, and Jim had a chance to drive students to the polls. They were so excited about voting for the very first time. So politicians and everyone that comes to Durham, including you, will proclaim that you're honorary Wildcats. We've got 2 other real Wildcats, and Wildcats because of their children. So every politician, everyone that comes to Durham has to learn a cheer. And the first part of it goes, "It's a great day to be a Wildcat." And then your part is, "Great day to be a Wildcat." So all together, it's a great day to be a Wildcat. Every day is a great day to be a Wildcat. All right, thank you.
Well, thank you. You guys were terrific, and you all spoke about different aspects of the university. That was wonderful. So now we'd like for you to think about what questions you may have for Ellie, Hart, Cal, Jim, and Carly. They would love to answer any questions and just interact with you and whatever you'd like to ask them. As you're thinking about your questions, we have the index cards on the table there with pencils, so please feel free to write down your questions, and I'll come around and get the questions and then give it to our panelists here. But I want to make mention of two special people we have in the audience here. We invited Susan Geib, who's a resident here in the back, to join us. Susan, she received her MFA in creative writing from the university at age 70. We're very proud of Susan. And we also want Michael Gordon to join us as well. He's sitting over in the blue sweater. He is a resident here, and he graduated with Jim and Carly Helen. So you can feel free to ask them directly any questions about their experience at UNH. They're here to talk to you and give you their thoughts as well. One thing I also wanted to mention is at the table, there's another opportunity to take courses. Some of you may be familiar with OSHER. The acronym is OLLI. OSHER is the Lifelong Learning Institute. And we do have OLLI at Pease. We are 10 minutes from what used to be Pease Air Force Base. And throughout the state of New Hampshire, I believe there's 5 locations where OLLI is located. But it's great that we're so close to that campus as well. So they provide a lot of courses, and we have printed out a number of their activities and course list for you out on the table. So I'm sure that you loved to hear that a number of our residents do take part in audit classes at UNH. We mentioned also the Wildcat Transit. It's great that we are a stop on Wildcat Transit bus system, and that goes to local towns. Actually, Jim and Carly, do you know exactly where the Wildcat Transit goes? They Dover and Fort. And then does the route around. Okay, terrific. I also want to mention, Jim had mentioned the ARA, Active Retirement Association. As Jim mentioned, they have over 400 members. They offer wonderful courses, day trips, cultural events, and we do have a calendar of events from the ARA out on the table as well. And one of our future residents, Penny Drucker over there, she's been very involved with the ARA, so feel free to ask Penny any questions. I know Penny and her husband Mike had presented on their trip to China. So a lot of the attendees of the ARA will present on trips that they may have taken. So feel free to ask Penny any questions. But now we'd like to hear from you. Please raise your hand with any questions you have, and we will come around and take your questions. Ellie, this first question is for you. Someone had asked for you to talk about the courses that you've taken at UNH.
Sure. Life is very funny, the way you start doing things. I had moved from Hebron, New Hampshire, where I was on the planning board and then the select board, and I got very friendly with an attorney who was, he was very involved in town government too. He moved to Portsmouth. This is where the shaggy dog story comes. he walks his dog with a professor of political science at UNH. And my friend Pete Carey, he must have said something nice about me to this professor. The professor contacted me to invite me to audit his course. So that was my first political science course. And I took 2 courses with Chris Reardon, and he has come here to speak 2 or 3 times at this point. It was just great. His specialty is China and that whole area. And then the political science course I was taking the last semester was the contemporary European politics. I alluded to that before, but when the invasion of Ukraine happened and the students were so concerned, I admire the professor so much because she shifted gears. Most of my career was a professor. I taught at Wellesley College, computer science, and directed IT. And I call it the tyranny of the lesson plan, because if you have a lesson plan, all hell could break loose and you just keep going with that same plan. But this professor didn't do that. What she did is she just switched gears. She had them, watch the Council on Foreign Affairs. She lives in Portsmouth, and her next door neighbor during the summertime was a retired top guy in foreign service in the Soviet Union, Russia, Eastern Europe. She set up a Zoom conference with the students and this man. It was just amazing the way she pulled that off. So what I find about UNH, it's both very large and yet very intimate. Those kind of, and I'll give you one odd example. We mentioned that the president of UNH, Jim Dean, came to give a talk here. And how this happened, I paint, and I do paintings of buildings and all that. And when I move to a new area, I start doing paintings. And after I get so many paintings, I create a poster. And the posters are sold to benefit nonprofits. So if you go downstairs near where the mailroom is there, you'll see that a poster I did of Durham over the past year or so. And the town administrator, town planner, each week when I did a new painting, would put it in the online newsletter. So, shaggy dog story. The wife of the president, Jan Dean, saw that, and she contacted the administrator, Todd Selig, to see would I do a painting of the president's house. So I got to know Jan, and then invited Jan and Jim, to come here. There is, by the way, whenever we have these professors and dignitaries come, there's always wine in my apartment afterwards. So that's fun. You get to know them at an intimate level. So the family connection, my granddaughter's boyfriend, they now just got engaged, is just finishing his PhD at Washington University in St. Louis. And when I moved here to RiverWoods in Durham, I kept joking, and his name is Matthew Thompson. And Thompson is a big name at UNH. So I said, well, of course you're going to come and teach at UNH. So he, at just a propitious moment, he asked, do I have any connections? Well, at that point, I've been having dinner with the president of the university and his wife, and they had come and given a talk here. And now Jan Dean has the painting that I did. Well, first I just painted the house, but then when Jan and Jim saw that the only way I would paint the town, the Durham Town Hall is so boring. It's just this old bank building. So I told the staff, the only way I'll paint this building is if you all stand in front of it. So they did, and I photoshopped them on top. And then President Dean and his wife, they then wanted to be standing in front of their house. So if you look at the poster, you'll see, again, I paint watercolor, but you cannot make identifiable people that are only like 1/8 of an inch tall. So that's where Photoshop comes in handy. So that's a long story, but what I see is a large university that is a very intimate feeling, that everybody sort of knows everybody, and it's collegial and quite wonderful. So I don't know if that answers the question, but hey, I think I'm coming out of jet lag, so watch out, world.
Yeah, I'd like to share. We've taken a couple of courses. One course I took was Women in the Fiber Arts, and it not only talked about the G-bend quilts from the South and the story that they told about slavery. But they also talked about quilts made by women throughout the world, especially the women of Guatemala, and how they got the word out that their men were being kidnapped and killed. Another course we both took was in sociology, where we studied the arts and we had to read the Odyssey. But every other week, they would put us on a UNH bus and take us to Boston, to the opera, to the theater, to the dance. But in between, we had to do ballet and we had to do modern dance. And you've never seen anything like all these football players trying to do ballet before our performance that we went to. So the professors, as Ellie said originally, you do have to get permission. I think the only time I've heard of it being denied is if it's a lab course and they just don't have the physical setup for you.
Once you get to know the professors, if the class is already filled, then they can do an override because you don't add a burden to them. You know, it's a good thing for both sides. You don't have to write papers, you don't have to take exams. That means they don't have to read your papers and they don't have to grade the exams. So it's really, you don't really add a burden to the professors. And if there's room in the classroom, they will usually make it possible for you to, to sit in. And there's some small amount of money, $65 or so for a fee. But then this is something that I really wish they'd straighten out. When I audited courses at Plymouth State University, that was it. But here I find when the tax comes around that UNH then files that it's a scholarship or a grant for $400, which surprised me since it wasn't the same at and they call it this is a quibble because I just think the whole experience is so wonderful, and that's just $400 taxable income. So, but you should be aware that that is it, and I would encourage you if you do move to Durham to do that because it's for all the reasons that have been stated. It's really a very important part.
I'd just like to mention that when we took that course and we went back and forth to Boston for all these cultural events, at the time, and this is a number of years ago, at the time, I believe if you paid and took the course as a student, it was like $1,100. I think at the time we only paid a registration fee of $35.
Jim, since you have the microphone, someone had asked, and maybe Jim and Hart could talk about more about the sporting events that you attend. And Jim, I particularly love when you talked about the coach's call, when you would gather with a group of friends locally.
Okay. You don't need, now you don't need season tickets for men's hockey, for instance, because they have not had a good seasons for a while. So you can get just individual tickets. When we moved here, you were on a waiting list because they were flying high nationally, but not now. We, as Carly mentioned, we went to, I think, every volleyball game. We've gone to just about all the gymnastic, women's gymnastics. I go to football games individually. I don't have a season pass. After volleyball game, the volleyball players go out into the lobby of the field house, sit behind tables, and they autograph big photos of the team, and people line up and get them for their grandkids and great grandkids. All the girls, there's a lot of clubs around here, gymnastic clubs, and you can talk to them there and get to know them. So that's men's hockey will do that. Also, there's a coaches show. Hasn't been in the last few years because of the pandemic, but every Monday night, the football coach during the fall season and the men's hockey coach during the winter will be interviewed on the radio, and the restaurant could be here in Durham, could be in Portsmouth, could be in Dover. It just depends how they do the contract. And it is a wonderful opportunity to not only meet the students, but also get to know the coaches. Not many people go to that. And I got together a bunch of neighbors, maybe 6 or 8 of us would go. It's a Monday night, men's out, cheeseburger and a beer, and you many times the student or the coach would sit at the table, and you're the starting quarterback for the football team, and you came from California. Tell me about your recruiting experience, and why did you choose UNH? And it's fascinating to get to know the ins and outs of the students, and you get to know the coaches. Then you see the coaches downtown walking around, and you talk to them. So that's another connection.
And someone had the question, how do you, just said, please say a few words about how you get information about what is currently happening at the university.
Yeah, there's a master calendar. You can go on the RiverWoods in-house software, and there's you can click on UNH, and there are 2 big websites, one for the athletic department and one for the cultural, the dance, theater, concerts, jazz concerts, recitals, that sort of thing. So there's 2 right here, and you can see the whole calendar.
And they might have been referring to you particularly. How do you get a good grasp on all of the events that are occurring?
Well, I get a lot of emails from UNH, but you know, they're all sliced and diced, but by departments. But there's a whole master thing on those 2 websites that are right here on the software.
Is UNH dog friendly?
Is it what?
Dog friendly.
Well, it's controlled by Durham, and Durham has a leash rule. The dog has to be on a leash out in the public.
And another question, has anyone been involved with the UNH retired professors group and how to connect with that group?
We had neighbors at Fitz Farm, where we moved from, a mile up the street, that were retired UNH professors. And I've been invited to a couple of their, I don't know, it was a monthly meeting, whatever they had. And it would be breakfast at the Alumni Center, and they would have, one of the professors was tapped, retired professors, to give a little talk over after breakfast. And I assume that is still going. I don't know what happened during the pandemic, but I assume that is still going.
Thank you. Thank you, Ellie. Our next event is virtual, and it's everything you need to know about Medicare. And Lauren is going to put up that event there. And the last thing before lunch is we have a door prize. We have a UNH hat and UNH t-shirt. We've put all of your names in here in the basket, and I'm going to let Dan choose a name for this door prize. Jane Leideke. Congratulations, Jane. So feel free, we're actually going to ask Ellie, Hart, you're welcome, Cal, Jim, and Carly, to each one of them to sit at a table so that you can get the opportunity to ask them more about RiverWoods Durham and UNH.